Welcome back to the Distressed Princess. In today's video, I'm doing primitive Halloween crafts. So if rusty, crusty, country vibes is your style, then keep watching. Almost everything I'm using today are Dollar Tree items, and these are two of the books. I like to get two different sizes, the larger one and the smaller one. I used black chalk paint and I painted the fronts, the bindings, and the backs, but I left the sides just like they were because they already look like pages and they have some cute little designs on them already. Now, the primitive style dictates that everything look dirty. That's just the way it is. And so we're gonna dirty up the books, and I'm using some truffle chalk paint, and I'm going to just dry brush that on all of the sides that I just painted. And if you'll notice that I'm working on the edges and working my way to the inside of the book, to the center, I mean. So edges toward the center gives you the best look. The next step in the book stack is to make some labels. And you can use any kind of material, and I saved this from a Dollar Tree stocking last year because I liked the material that it was. It's kind of like felt, but a little homespun, and it's the right creamy color, which I'm gonna make dirty anyway, but I'm gonna cut out some rectangle shapes to work as labels for my books. And I use a black paint pen to write spells and potions. Instead of using hot glue to attach the labels, I used double-sided tape because I thought that the hot glue might come through the material and look kind of nasty. Another item that was used a lot in primitive decor was jute string. So I'm going to hot glue and wrap some jute string around each of my books on each end. In primitive crafting, there is a secret to making everything look rusty, dirty, and grungy, and it's cinnamon. So I'm just patting it on my labels, and then I cut some pieces of Dollar Tree creepy cloth to drape over the top of the book stack, and I hot glued it down. Now I'm going to make a primitive cat to sit on top of the book stack. And you could probably Google and find a cat template that you could print out, trace around, and get your cat, but I just drew it out of my head. And this is black felt that I'm drawing it out on, and when I cut it out, I'm going to cut it out of two pieces. So I'm going to have a cat to stuff. This is going to have a front and a back. I also decided I drew the cat too large, so then I scaled it down some. Once you have your two cats cut out of your felt, then you're going to hot glue them together, leaving the bottom open so you can stuff it. And I found a sharpened pencil very helpful to get the stuffing stuffed all the way down into the cat's ears. When he's stuffed but not too full, then I sealed up the bottom. Now you can do any kind of decorations you want on your cat. I am using some what I think is more like homespun material to make some patches to put on him, and I'm going to show you how I coffee stained some material that I'm going to stamp and pin on him a little tag. You're definitely going to need some button eyes, so I've got my button stash out here, and when I was looking in it for my button eyes, I came across a couple other buttons I thought would go with this cat very well, so I picked them out to decorate him too. After I hot glued the eyes on, then I used some tan felt and cut a triangle for a nose. Now I'm going to coffee stain a little scrap of material. It's a piece of flour sack towel actually, and I have 1 cup of hot water that I've added 1 heaping teaspoon of instant coffee to, and stirred it up till the crystals were dissolved. And now I'm putting my little piece of material in. It doesn't take very long and you'll get a nice dirty look. Then after the material dried, I stamped the word boo. And I pinned it to my cat with a tiny little black safety pin. To make his whiskers, I threaded a needle and I pulled the thread through like I was going to make a stitch, but I left it open, and then I cut off each end and put hot glue so that it wouldn't pull completely out. And then this cat needs to get dirty too. So we've got our pan of cinnamon over here, and I'm patting cinnamon all over our little putty tab. To attach the cat to the book stack. That is a rhyme. I just used hot glue. I had stuffed mine to where it had sort of a flat enough bottom that hot glue worked just fine to make him stand up. I did decide to add a tail, so that also could help you balance. And the tail is just a piece of black velvet ribbon from the Dollar Tree. So I cut a length of it, and then I'm going to roll it and hot glue it together, and voila, cat tail. And I hot glued my tail like it was going to curl around to the front, and that helped balance him out a little bit better on my book stack. I hot glued the tail to the book stack in a couple of places, and I also put a little extra hot glue in the back. The next primitive craft is going to be a flower arrangement. Well, not flower, a fall leaf arrangement. And so I've got these leaves from the Dollar Tree, but they're very brightly colored. So I'm going to take them outside and spray them with some Rust-Oleum Nutmeg spray paint. And that will tone down these colors and give us a nice fall brown color. And this is a good way to do this by poking your stems into a box, and that way they'll stand up and you can spread them out and get the paint on them a lot better. And while your leaves are drying outside, then you can start working on your bucket. And this is a Dollar Tree bucket. We're going to paint it up to be a rusty old crusty bucket though. So I painted the whole bucket with Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the color Truffle. I painted the inside, the outside, the handle, and all. Then, so that it would still have sort of an orange element to it, I dry brushed some chalk paint in the color Pumpkin by Waverly onto the bucket. And this pumpkin color also acts like rust spots, and so I didn't even put cinnamon on this bucket, so it's just done with paint. And the last step to the bucket is to draw the jack-o'-lantern face back on, which I could barely see through the paint where it was. I thought I had this on here straight. It wound up being a little cockeyed from where the handle is, but the way I position it later, you can't tell. Now the next part to this craft is another item from the Dollar Tree. It's from the plus section. It's $3. And it really doesn't scream primitive. I know it looks like I should be painting it with brown paint and putting cinnamon all over it and making it look rusty and crusty, but I'm sorry, I couldn't do it with this one. We're gonna mix some shiny with some prim and see how that goes, because I kind of thought it was cool. But before I attach the bucket, I wanted to go ahead and fill it with my florals. So I'm cutting down some Dollar Tree floral foam, and I hot glued that and a couple pieces stacked on top so that the floral foam came almost to the top of the bucket. And then I hot glued Spanish moss on top of the floral foam. And here's our leaves back inside and dry. They are much more toned down in color, and so we're gonna start building our arrangement. I ultimately decided just to use leaves, although I did have some other flowers off to the side that I thought about using. I just used my leaf picks. I just thought that looked the best. And so I cut each leaf stem apart from the bunch and put each one in individually. Another fun thing about primitive decor is the ratty tatty material, the ribbons and old fabrics and just raggedy material. So we're gonna make a ratty little bow to put into the arrangement. We're gonna coffee stain some more material. This is a tea towel or a flour sack towel from the Family Dollar store. You can get a pack of 5 of these flour sack towels for $5 at the Family Dollar store if you're interested. So you saw I tore some strips of that flour sack towel. Now I'm going to coffee stain them. I've got my cup of hot water. This has been microwaved for about 1 minute. And then a teaspoon of the instant coffee. And now I've put my strips of the flour sack towel into the coffee. And just like that, it's going to stain the material and make the perfect primitive yucky color. Then I just did mine messy bow style. I just cut, just eyeballing lengths, and I just cut little pieces of ribbon about how wide I wanted the bow to be in its entirety, because I'm going to cinch it in the middle. So all of mine are pretty much the same length, but you know, I didn't measure. And then I take a piece of jute string and tie in the center and fluff it out. And so I hot glued my messy raggedy ribbon right onto my flower arrangement, and you can also see that I've attached my bucket. I did that with E6000, so it's a strong hold, and I hot glued some creepy cloth around the base of the candlestick. In this primitive fall craft, you're going to need one of these orange buckets from the Dollar Tree and some jack-o'-lantern stickers. But if you don't have jack-o'-lantern stickers, you can actually paint them or draw them on with a marker. It's going to go outside, so it needs to be weather resistant. And this makes a really cute container for a fall mum. This is the first mum that I have ever had in the fall, and really trying to keep it alive and make it keep growing. So any advice in the comments would be appreciated. I see that there's one live looking bloom. The rest probably need deadhead. But I thought it would be cute to make a witch's wanted sign to plant down into the mum. So I have a wooden dowel that was from a flag that I bought earlier in the year, and a star cutout from the Dollar Tree. And I have a screen stencil, but I'm only using part of it, the witch's wanted part. And the first thing I did for making the sign was paint the star and the dowel with black chalk paint. Then I sanded all around the edges, but it just wasn't giving me the distressed look that I was looking for. I wanted it more distressed with less sanding effort. So I'm using some light beige acrylic paint, and I'm dry brushing it around the edges to look like that black paint has worn off. I decided to use the broom in this stencil too, so I'm crisscrossing the broom, and then Witches Wanted will go on top. And I'm starting to find a lot of these expensive screen stencils at yard sales and thrift stores, so keep your eyes peeled. Then for added cuteness, I used some raffia, which is actually a hula skirt from the Dollar Tree. I cut off a few pieces of that and added some more ribbon and tied it to the dowel. This little pumpkin stack from the Dollar Tree is just screaming to be rustied and crustied. So the first thing I did was put a coat of the truffle chalk paint from Waverly on. This is also a decoration that you can put batteries in and make a sound effect. I think it's even motion activated, but I'm not using that aspect of it. It's just to sit and look pretty. I painted one section at a time, and while the paint was still wet, I sprinkled the cinnamon on top until the whole thing was covered with the paint and the cinnamon. Then I let this whole thing dry overnight. The next morning it was dry, so I added my matte Mod Podge on top to seal it. Now you can handle this decoration without cinnamon falling off of it, and I'm going to fill back in the faces on the pumpkins with some black chalk paint and a very small detail brush. And I tied a ratty little ribbon around the top pumpkin's neck. And the last primitive Halloween DIY I have for you today is my favorite, I think. So it's a Dollar Tree pumpkin, which obviously is already in a pumpkin shape, but I wanted to go a little extra and give it those pumpkin lines. So I am tying some jute string around the stem and hot gluing in places to give it more of that pumpkin look. Then, to give it a hat, I cut out a square piece of felt and rolled it up into a cone shape. And then I secured it with hot glue and cut off the uneven bottom. I made my hat tall and skinny so that it could fold over, and I'm going to hang a rusty jingle bell off the end of it. But first, to attach the hat, I just used hot glue. Then I folded the tip of the hat down kind of crooked and hot glued it there. To make a rusty jingle bell, I painted it with the Waverly chalk paint and truffle, and I sprinkled cinnamon on it just like I did with the pumpkins before. And then I rolled it around in Mod Podge to seal the cinnamon. And hot glued it onto my hat. And the fabric on this pumpkin and the felt on this hat are way too new and pretty pristine to be primitive. So we have to do the cinnamon. So this is fun. You just sprinkle the cinnamon all over everything and you have good smelling stuff all over your house. And the cats don't mess with it because they don't really like cinnamon. So that's why you don't see them nosing around here too much today. But anyway, I sprinkled the cinnamon all over my little pumpkin guy. And then the last step is to kind of decorate it up a little bit. So I cut some more of the creepy cloth. Again, I got that from the Dollar Tree. Almost all of this stuff is available at the Dollar Tree. Very inexpensive. So I hot glued the creepy cloth onto the hat, and then I tied some more jute string around and decided I wanted a patch on my pumpkin. So here is another piece of fabric that I have saved, also from a stocking, a Christmas stocking at Dollar Tree, but it has a really neat kind of burlappy fabric. So I'm cutting out a square. I'm going to fray the edges by pulling the strings, and then I'm going to make a design on it. No, I'm sorry. I decided to coffee stain it first. So I stuck it in my little cup of coffee. So when you're making these crafts, keep your coffee through the whole thing, because you might find more stuff that you want to dip into the coffee and make it a little richer, darker color. So anyway, I've got my little piece here. I'm going to dry it, and then I'm going to make a design, which is really simple. I just used a black paint pen and did a number 31. And then after I attached it with the hot glue, I thought it needed a little something else. So I took a regular black pen and drew a spider and a web. And I tied another little ribbon bow. So what do you think about adding some prim style to your fall decor this year? I hope you all enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope everyone is safe and sound from the hurricane, and I will see you next time. Bye! If you liked this video and you want to keep watching, I've got a link for you right here. It's all loaded up and ready to go.